Some say Africa's golden era is gone. A time when great African kings and queens built their dreams into empires, stretching across the continent and beyond. But we say a new era is upon us. A new set of African kings and queens are on the rise. Driven by the same wealth of character as the kings and queens before them. Building new empires of enterprise with the right partnership. So rise up wherever you are, new kings and queens of Africa. Embrace your full potential and be proud of your heritage.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another experience of the New Africans. Now, this show became in the development when we had a group of individuals transition over the Jordan to get their African names and join the journey, not only of searching for the divine self, but also toward the liberation of our people. So today's topic, and we've been talking about different topics in the last time we had a topic, we talked about self-determination, but I wanted to look at it as a larger scale. So we're talking about the liberation theology and the concept of building a nation inside a nation. Now, we had started a tradition of having an elder, but last week we had a community meeting that made us not actually live stream. And so the community meeting was, we went to the community meeting and it was canceled. And so now they said the community meeting is actually tonight. And we have two individuals that chose not to cancel. Now, I didn't want to pull any of the community elders out of the meeting. So as a respect to their relationship and the connection and the leadership, we sat down and said, okay, the group called and said, hey, Reverend Ajay, we would like to do the show. And so here we're doing the show. And we have the twins. Y'all twinning tonight. Sister Nia. Y'all twinning tonight.
Unplanned. I showed up on camera and was like,
y'all called each other and was like,
we
hey,
did
girl.
not. I did talk to her this morning because that's my sister. I talked to her a couple of times, but had no idea that we were
the whole time.
Look, even the locks. I had my hair in a ponytail earlier today. I took a shower before, it's down now, but yeah.
Rocking the sacred red and black in our community. Y'all know that, right? Classic colors.
And honestly, that's why I chose it, because my favorite color is yellow. So I was like, I don't want people to be like, oh, she trying to just evoke yellow. Maybe she trying to like, I don't know. Let me switch it up a little bit.
If that's your spiritual color, let your spiritual color be your spiritual color.
Come on, O'Shawn.
You're not
right. That's what I was thinking. I didn't want people to be like, oh, she trying to be O'Shawn. I'm like,
there we go.
I can do love, fertility.
Right.
So if it's your spiritual color, just let it be.
Let it be.
That's right. So we don't have a Zola up here, so I'm going to represent the Y chromosome in this conversation. The divine masculine, holding up against this divine feminine energy.
Hey.
Now, well, check in. How y'all doing this week? Everything is okay?
Yeah, I'm ready to hop into it.
Okay. All right. There was a discussion about the group getting larger, the New African group getting larger. How's that looking?
So we do have more members in our group.
Okay.
With our community, we do have different support groups. And so I have invited them to be in this space, but we are not about telling people to do things.
Right.
It's about your choices. And I've heard one of the young brothers, he was saying, I might, join in, but again, I don't want to pressure people into doing things. It's something collectively.
Right. Everything has to be
before it extended. But I would love for there to be more faces here, especially with the members that did join our group. They have been in our community much longer. Some of them were even born. Well, I think all three of them were born into this community.
Mhm.
And so to hear the different perspectives, I've talked to them individually, but I think to share your story to, will help. It gives us a balance. So
Yeah,
they not like,
yeah. And so I came up with thought about the concept of a seasoned new African, seasoned new African. And then understanding that, and this happens in our community, and I will pose, since we don't have an elder, I'm going to let my 30 plus years represent a little wisdom, maybe. And so when I thought about them extending the group and the individuals that were coming in, the concept of being a seasoned new African, meaning that we've been, you have individuals who have been a part of this community and they also have been born in this community. But there were classes and books and certain rituals they didn't necessarily go through. And so this would also be a conversation or a place where the seasoned new African could actually experience some things that they haven't experienced being here longer than you guys. It'd be something new. I think that would add, like you said, a different flavor. How does it feel like to be in the experience and still learning? Basically, you're part of, they assigned you to the new African group. And so that means you're seasoned, but you're yet still new. So I think that works. And so tonight's conversation, liberation theology. Liberation theology and the concept of a nation within a nation, building a nation within a nation. Now, when I think of liberation theology, one of the things that I'll start with is understanding Garveyism. And so then basically, instead of just diving straight into the liberation theology, but I took it from Garveyism. My personal understanding was Garveyism. Then from Garveyism, it went to Pan-Africanism. And then from Pan-Africanism, then my understanding of liberation theology developed. And it came, well, I'll ask you, what comes to mind when you heard or hear, if it's for the first time of y'all discussed it in orientation, what came to mind when you heard the words liberation theology?
Freedom,
Okay.
liberation, the thought, like what my personal or anyone's personal interpretation of freedom is. Theology, yeah, how you interpret freedom, what's freedom for you, what makes sense in your divine self, for sure.
Najuma?
So yeah, I think at first, of course, I liken the word to liberation to freedom, right? But I just wrote something down to that to be free is a external condition, right? But I think that when you're liberated, it's about agency and you're conscious and you're healing. And so I think that was the difference of what I learned in orientation. Prior to, I had never heard the concept of what liberation theology was. And so, yeah, I'll stop right there.
I know for me, first I took the part liberation. And in that statement of liberation, it happened in two stages when I first heard it and I became to understand it in this environment. So liberation is that freedom of mind, body, and spirit toward anything that's obstructs you from manifesting your higher self. And then you have the physical aspect, which is more of a Black power political movement, where the ownership of the institutions around you, where the institutions that govern your life actually are straight for your benefit. And this is where we get in today's world, we call it the all Black everything, having our own schools, our own hospitals, our own police force, our own everything, our own farms, our own grocery stores. It's the all liberation is the all black everything. It's that political movement that creates institutional power. And that was explained by Jeremiah J. Baby Osmond, where it was like, hey, you can't, how can you embody or jump into the spiritual aspect of the divine self, yet it does not show in anything that you do when you live daily. And with the PAOCC, one of the things that Jeremiah Baby Ajiman said was the church needs to be the forefront of the movement where black people, it affects our lives daily. If it's not affecting our life daily, then it is not a religious institution. As well as the issue with Garvey. It wasn't when you're dealing with the liberation theology and it's a part of your faith, then the development of political, social, economic power and foundation becomes a divine responsibility. Because they said, in that space they were dealing with in Garvey, it was a give and take. Harriet Tubman said, I would free more if they knew they were slaves. So people can choose not to, but then if it's a divine responsibility, if God frees you go through God to free your mind, your body, and spirit. Well, you don't necessarily completely free your body if your body is oppressed by another society. Mm-hmm. And so what level of fight do you put up if it's not, if your faith doesn't tell you that in God you struggle to build something that reflects God? Is it really spiritual?
It's funny because I thought about that when I first left our new members meeting, when I joined. And I remember saying, and I think I looked at it today, was faith with fight. This is a faith with fight. Because growing up in Oakland, again, I go through that. It's a true paradox because you're in an area, me particularly, I say it proudly. I'm from deep East Oakland. And I say that because I need people to understand that I come from a historic place where we were about political movement. So it's in the streets, even though there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of other things that you see. That was something that was in us, installed in us as kids to be revolutionaries, right? But the paradox comes growing up in a religious organization that taught us to be separate from the world. Mm-hmm. Which meant that you didn't get involved in politics or protest or any type of anything or systems that we were being taught in school or that I was being taught by my friends or even my grandmother, right? And so that part of me always felt off because how can I sit here and watch injustice? And again, growing up in Oakland, growing up near LA, we've seen police brutality all the time. That was the story of our lives, not just in recent years. How do you see that even as an organization and stay silent? So I think for me, I said, okay, I'm belonging to something now that is saying that my faith does allow me, to fight. And so that gave the language, like you said, to your spirit, which I had already felt that it's not about your spirituality being a retreat. It's almost being a resistance to that system in which we're in. And so over time, delving in more into a Pan-Africanism, learning more about Garvey, I think that has also been a tool in my faith to awaken the power that I already knew that we were supposed to be having.
Yeah. Have you viewed Jesus and Christianity as a revolutionary movement before you started this journey?
No, it's what made me start because it made sense. It never made sense before. I knew it existed. That it worked because of my ancestors, my grandmother, rest in peace, Robbie Clark. So I knew there was substance to it because it did make mountains move. But it
Mm.
sense to me, just like make it make sense. So that I can ingest that part, that aspect of it. And that's what made me join, because I was like, finally, something I can believe in.
But I always thought it was funny that you're taught sorry, you're taught mostly, or what's described is this calm individual who prayed and was preaching peace, but they never talk about him flipping the tables.
Hey,
like they never, you know what I'm saying? Like flipping tables, calling out leadership. He talking to the Pharisees and Sadducees, telling them their text, like you wearing this stuff on your head, and it is written. And so, and so at first, of course, no, I didn't think of that, because again, I'm taught, we're praying and turning the other cheek, but it's in the Bible. The man was flipping over tables, y'all. So of course he's revolutionary.
Probably slapped.
Yeah.
So when did that click? That wait a minute, you know what I mean? He's a rebel rouser. Where you getting that from?
Yeah.
When did that click for you?
Like, yeah, and it was about money. Yeah. So point. Yeah. So okay, now I can. That's when I was like, okay, Jesus, I can relate. Okay, now we bringing them back down. Okay, he did all this. He done raised up from the earth, and he done did all these things, and letting the blind people see, and healing the leprosy and stuff. But when he started flipping tables, I was like, okay, that's something that's real. I also think that there's a connection with the Great Flood and the disconnect in the continents when they separated through water from some connect there. Because I think that science and the Bible kind of go a little bit hand in hand. And then when you make Jesus a revolutionist, it just all comes together, for me. So, mentally, it has to make sense. It has to make sense. And then knowing, I always knew that, and this is how I always knew. I was like, okay, when that "What Would Jesus Do" movement came out, I think that's when it clicked that I'm the God, I'm the Jesus, I'm the representation, I'm the divine, and I look for me to help guide me to be my best self, and I get to interpret this book, which best goes by the rules that are already written in my spirit, because I have my path. So that's when it all clicked for me. The first part of that, knowing that, okay, because I grew up in a private school in elementary, so I know all the books, doing sword drills, and singing Jesus songs and Father Abraham and all that kind of stuff. So that's when it started. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And then when it made sense, like, oh, I could still read the Bible, and it all make sense, because I didn't really want to get rid of the Bible and Jesus. I didn't want to just throw it all away, because again, Robbie Clark raised 7 kids off of Jesus. You know what I mean?
Right.
First Psalm. So I just couldn't throw that away, because I watched it. I watched the miracles happen.
There was a conversation that I remember talking to somebody about, where Jeramoja Baby Hajiman was having conversations with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And they were always coming to Jeramoja asking him, hey, man, are you sure you don't want to be Muslim? And he was like, no, I'm sure I'm a Christian. However, and he said, we can take any religion on the face of the planet and claim it ours, because it all comes from us, as long as we take it back to its natural historic roots. And so I know for a lot of people who challenge the Christian faith, with African mystery systems, African spiritual systems. One of the things that they, and I say this was the breach, which works for us, is the fact that we don't see the history of Israel as a history of Caucasians. You know, and one of the things I think woke up a lot of people's eyes when they were able to actually see the more of the truth, because they said that in biblical times, Romans crucified revolutionaries. And so when the movie came out, and this is what I'm throwing a wrench in the conversation, the Book of Clarence. Did y'all see the Book of Clarence?
Yep.
And when that movie came out and you were able to physically see what the Black nation Israel was going through and what Jesus would really, really represent in that time, then now. And so I always say that we live in a time where we have more access to information since we got here. And so we're not using the access of information, which is this internet, this social media, this all this data. Now it's AI, because AI is not gonna lie. Well, they didn't poison it just yet, but AI is not gonna lie.
I don't know about that.
Right. But being able to sit down and say, wait a minute, to look at the movie and then grab the scripture, and look at the movie and grab the scripture, those who have never understood that connection of him being a revolutionary now works. When you look at where the biblical times in its historical age, where you have the us and them. It wasn't because they got the mindset of it's all, because when you're reading it, I know when I'm looking at it, I'm reading it as a child, everybody's white. Because ain't nobody, the only time I saw a Black Jesus was on Good Times. And JJ put it on the wall. Was as sad as you could get, but that was it. And it was Black Jesus who did it. Mama Michael went crazy. He put that thing on the wall, and I sat there and just looked at it. It was something like new, not realizing that they were pushing the envelope of history. And so being able to actually witness that, you can actually translate and see the stories of the Black nation Israel a lot easier in today's time versus yesterday.
I mean, yeah, I think it also brings it back to, again, the different interpretations. Because if you're taught something, you will grow up thinking, and I think we'll talk about this more in regards to Christianity and in regards to Jesus just being in submission. I think that so for me, my journey, and I talked about, separating myself from that organization for 15 years. So you have 15 years, but I had been there for 18, 19. So I had to undo a lot of those thinkings and unlearn a lot of the teachings.
Yes.
And so reading things, like I'll keep saying, being a lover of social theory. Then once I started reading those different books and different methodologies, I was able to view Jesus as someone that just didn't pray, but someone that was siding with the sick and challenging different systems. And so in essence, that Christianity was never about submission. It is the blueprint of revolution.
Come on. Oh, and so you walking into like you said, we're going to talk about it more, because you just walked into the next question. Many people associate Christianity with submission rather than being a revolutionary.
Yes.
How does that liberation theology challenge or change the narrative?
It's so sad. It's sad. It burns your light. It burns your light.
Being submissive does.
It burns your light.
Being submissive does. Yeah. And this is the argument that African spiritualists, because we are as well, but seeing it as, they may have used the interpretation. It is not the fact that it is the issue of Christianity or Judaism. It is, what interpretation are you learning from? One interpretation, and for those who watch the African Speaks, watch the power of the divine self, because we talked about the paradigm shift. It means looking at everything from an African point of view, from an African perspective. So when you sit down and say, yeah, wait a minute, as a Eurocentric, when they looked at Israel and they said, wait a minute, we can't, the Romans, we can't stop these people because they believe in a God that is so much powerful than what we have. They will always rise up. So the only way we can truly control them is through their faith and through their religion. And so that there's a whole thing where they took over that. So I don't think it's the faith. It is the interpretation of the faith that changes. So when you take a look at it and you look at it through the concept of it was African people now trying to be in Jesus's time, right? Even now in the Old Testament, there are no Caucasians. Old Testament, there are no Caucasians. Even when you say Babylon, there are no Caucasians. Caucasians come when they get to the word of Gentiles. When you start realizing, wait a minute, I'm reading an African history book. And then when Jesus comes in the picture, he is revolting against the people who wants to degrade us for the sake of our skin color. Now, usually when you're dealing with African spirituality and African culture and African lifestyles and traditions, we never oppressed each other because you were black. That was just not happening. Mm-hmm. Why? Because everybody was black. We're pressing you because we want to increase our empire. And we telling you, come on in. And all of a sudden you come on in, but you're not being degraded against because of your skin color. Not until the New Testament, where they come in contact. And if y'all never seen the African history class, I need to step in the African history class because I broke this down. Where the Greeks and the Romans now want access to Africa because of the amount of the trade. Merchants, they said, wait a minute, we got to go to them to eat. Let us take over all of it so we don't have to ask for any of it. They back then knew that they were the lesser genotype. And it's in their history. So now, well, you know what? We need to come take that. Why? Because we don't want to be no man created by God, which is they're still man, and they were a manifestation of our lesser gene, wants to be able to have to look at somebody else and say, can I eat? No man, no real man. I create man in my image. Can I eat, please? Can you give me wool and stuff for clothing? Can you help me feed my family? I just got some kids. No man, and this is what Garvey was saying, and this is what Jeremiah G. pushes. Garvey was saying that no, the only sovereignty we have is the sovereignty under God. Anything else? No. And so, yes, if you're trying to oppress a man who sees himself in the eyes of God, yeah, that's right. No, we're gonna fight because I'm not doing that.
Yeah, so I think for me, challenging that narrative, how liberation theology has challenged the narrative. Mm-hmm. So again, growing up, that submission was framed as that is a godly fear, right? That you do not question leadership. You do not challenge authority. And so over the years, of course, unlearning that. And again, I talked about the difference between freedom and liberation, because like you said, this Bible was used to enslave those, but it's also up to us to reclaim it for true freedom and liberation. So I think that in a way, I was so spiritually asleep, being in submission. But I think that, and I honestly think that when you're in that submission, it is a form of oppression, which is not the will of God. And so therefore, the liberation theology shook me out of a spiritual sleep, if that makes sense of what I'm saying.
Yeah. There was, in the history of the shrine and Mengoan, that revolutionary Holy Spirit, which will not long permit man to endure injustice. That's a part of the what we say our creed. and being able to come in contact, because we've seen, and I know Jeremiah speaks on that Holy Spirit being a communal environment that happens within a people, not just a person. We dim that revolutionary spirit when it's just for an individual, but when it happens in the people, it's more powerful, and it pop, and to the point where that people now functions as a unit of one.
I'll be right back. I got
Okay.
I'll be right back. It's about to die. Hold on.
Go ahead. And so in this next one, liberation theology is often described as faith in action. Have you personally seen it applied in a real world struggles? Faith in action.
Yes, faith in action. Have I seen it apply? Well, just to go back to the last topic, I agree. We just really, I think that our ancestry, that divineness, that revolutionist, that's all in us. It's just so easy to turn it into anger. And so rage. And it's so important to find a nation within a nation to help guide you and to put all of your energy into making something productive out of that negative rage and hate that can come from what's in what has been suppressed within us, because it'll come out, it starts bubbling out, you know, and you're wondering, you're vulnerable, you're angry. So just to say the community, like you guys were saying, to be a part of it, it allows you to live it daily. So that's imperative, and that goes even into knowing that what was the question again?
We said the
question. I missed
liberation theology is often described as faith in action. How have you personally seen it applied in real world struggles?
Fasting in the past. I didn't do so well with Lent this go round, but fasting in the past, definitely. You know, I always think about Jesus talking to that rock. So definitely for me, spiritually, like I just trying to take as much of my brain power as possible when I can and be conscious, and then try to apply it with my day-to-day, which is finding that community in my nation within my nation. For sure. That's what I could think of. I used to protest. I'm too old now. I ain't trying to protest. Ain't nobody I'm like, woo, they burning down the city. Look at them. Ooh, he just
Najuma.
So when I say faith, when I think of faith in action, I always make this joke with the work that I do, which has been social service. I've been doing social services since I was a kid, 20. So 16 years. And so I always say, I'm doing the Lord's work. I make that joke with my colleagues all the time because I'm getting no money. And I'm doing all this work. I'm doing all this activism work, whether it's housing, whether it's now working with youth development, whether it's been working in addiction services. So I've seen that occur in my own personal life because, again, the other flip side of that paradox, that activism was placed into me very young. So that's why it was so easy for me to be a part of our community and for me to be and put my hands in a lot of places, because it's my life. It aligns with what I've been doing my whole life, and now finally I could be and feel comfortable in my skin to be who I am, right? And so, yeah. And then of course, growing up in the Bay Area, growing up doing the work that I do, I seen that faith in action. You know, churches, they do more than preaching. You know, they feed, they provide shelter. You know, I have seen that fight for their people. So yeah.
I know for the PAOCC, and in this journey that I've been a part of last 30 years, and the church is 72 years old. And I know that in one of my conversations to the community, as your mother would call it, the conversations to the community, I sat down and said, being 72 years old as an institution, as a spiritual institution, you can go back and say, ask the question. In the 1960s, on the civil rights movement, what was the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church doing? And you can get clear. We did the march in Detroit. We did the Freedom March. We partner shoulder to shoulder in terms of constructing how to develop that march on Washington versus after the Freedom March on Detroit. We erected the largest and the biggest, even still now, mural of the Black Madonna, when nobody was willing to sit down and discuss the blackness of the faith. The development of institutional power is a sign of true liberation, and watching that in action. And just look, even in the 70s, you had a lot of the Black Panther movement was faith in action. And then I could say in the 70s, where was the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church? And in that space, you can sit down and say that was when the vision of Bugle Land established, and which is now the largest Black-owned farm on this side of the Mississippi, right? There was when I came into the community, there was something called the Community Service Center, run by Cardinal Amanifu Waganga. I say that name like that because his Bible is on my altar, and I was under him for a while. When I first joined the church, every brother comes and anytime you're looking for a job, they told me go speak to Cardinal Amanifu. Walk into the office, and y'all have been in the Hall of Pentecost, not Hall of Pentecost, Founders Hall. Under Founders Hall is an office just as big as the Founders Hall and the Red Room put together. That was his office. Yes, that was the Community Service Center. So if anybody had any issues anywhere in the city of Atlanta, you could come to that community center. I walk down the stairs and I tell him, hey, young brother, 20s, 23, needing a job. He said he got his Rolodex, spun it around, grabbed it, clicked it out, and said, go speak to this man. Tell him I sent you. I grabbed that thing, wrote the referral down, went down there, and when I said his name, said who sent me, they hired me on the spot. Just those, and then again, institutional power when we deal with the issue of politics. Interviewing, we have a organization called the Black Slate. And the Black Slate is that political organization that will interview individuals running for office. And so we would, as a full-time missionary at one point, I would go out there and hold up and make sure that every political thing, I'm holding up a Black Slate sign. Look, we already interviewed everybody running for office. You want to know who's going to uphold the needs of our community? These are those individuals. And the community had such a connection. Our church community has such a connection and influence on every city that we were in. Black folk did not vote without the Black Slate. It was clear, and like anything else, again, Harriet Tubman, we would have freed more if they'd have known that they were slaves. The largest and the most strongest institution running in our community is our youth program. And when I came in, I would come, and the first place I would stop would be the nursery. And I would be there at the location maybe 2 hours before my first class, playing and having a good time with the kids, till the sister said, there's something special about this brother. There's a spirit on him. He needs to be with youth. So most brothers would go into maintenance and, security. And they were like, no, he's going to be the divine masculine energy that will be around these kids as we raise them. So institutional power, deeply, deeply important. And watching this particular organization for the last 72 years, wield that understanding. You're going to see our faith by the institutions we build. And so this has been just watching it. And now being a part of the energy that has to create the next series of institutions to give Black independence. And so it's been a lot here. Can you be spiritually liberated yet not struggle against your oppression? Can you be spiritually liberated yet not struggle against your oppression?
I don't think you can truly be spiritually free and ignore oppression.
Right.
Because once I stepped outside, like my spiritual box I grew up in, I couldn't unsee systems harming my people. So I might have been even quoted in saying this in Austin, that I felt, and I wrote this down, that it was one of my purposes was to be a gatekeeper of information for my people. Whether that was through housing, whether that was through grants, whether that was with whatever gifts, I wanted to be that person that had that information to bring to my people, because so many other people have been the gatekeepers of a lot of things and give it to theirs. So I think spiritual liberation unlocks my vision for that. And it's given me purpose beyond just surviving. So I think, in a way, struggling against oppression, it's become a sacred duty. And that's something that I talk about even with my children. You know, I told myself I wasn't going to bring up these kids tonight. But my middle boy, we've been listening to Bob Marley for a long time. And one of his favorite songs is War, right? And and that's one of the things he will quote, until, you know, everywhere is war, right?
Right.
Until everyone is free, we got to struggle against this. And so I can't transition without knowing that I struggled against it and also did my part. Because again, like I said, I feel like it's become a sacred duty. So yeah.
Nia?
Yeah, I second that.
See, twinning.
Yeah, there was I had again, being privileged in so many different ways and being in this community for so long, I've been a part of watching a lot of people transition. And in that space, I was invited to one of the brother who transitioned, and I was able to get some of his books. And he was one of the individuals who was sitting in the 70s, sitting and taking the classes that with Jemoji Bebe Ajiman, where he said, you know, we can talk about all Black everything, but if we're not giving Black people a authentic experience in God, we're wasting time. It has to be spiritual. That understanding, you said spirituality, spiritual liberation, mind, body, and spirit liberation. When it's eternal, it unlocks vision. So before then, you're still seeing the world. Before you can even engage in true liberation, you have to be spiritually released so that you could see where your ancestors and God is going to send you, where they're going to take you, what they need you to see, what you need to do before you follow. Like you said, it's all war until everybody's free. And a lot of people who are zealots, where they just straight up, once we are aware of who we are, we give other species of the human body an example on how to live as human beings. So we don't, people say, their biggest fear is that we will oppress them the way or treat them the way they treated us. No, we just want an authentic experience in God and be allowed to live from that awareness. And if you want to be over there being crazy, you can be crazy by yourself. But if you also seek to have a authentic experience in God, you're going to have to accept certain truths, which is you are genetically modified Black people. You are recessive traits, which is funny. But yeah, now building a nation within a nation. BCN. We used to say BCN is the answer. BCN is an answer because now we have, at one point in society, we didn't have as many African spiritual disciplines as we have now. So you have a lot of different sects go out there. And so the idea of a nation within a nation was discussed by Malcolm X. It was discussed by Baby Ajamin, Elijah Muhammad. It's discussed by Farrakhan. It's discussed. And we always say if genuine leadership, if the leadership from Garvey, if the leadership is telling you to follow some other people, it's not Black leadership. How do you interpret this concept of a nation within a nation?
I think it's go ahead, Nia.
I was just gonna say community. Big community. Takes a village. Community. You need what, like 2 or more come together, mountains move. We need backup. We need people. We need bodies. We need knowledge, different perspectives. We need different interpreters. We need different gods to get the job done. Definitely need a nation within a nation. And when I hear nation within a nation, I'm thinking of the nation you were born in and then recreating a better nation for yourself and being a part of something bigger and better than what you were born as, like grown.
Okay. Well, I think it's really reclaiming what we were told we didn't deserve. We don't deserve the power. We don't deserve our identity. We were told we didn't deserve our wholeness. And so I think, and again, I always stand strong. Growing up in Oakland, I saw what it means when our people are left out of what we're supposed to have, this dream that they sell in America, right? And so I think it's about creating something for ourselves, our own systems, schools, spiritual spaces. It's important to have your own spiritual spaces because it does resonate with you deeply. And I'm going to be very clear, and I'm pretty sure anybody seeing this won't have a problem. I don't think it's not separation. It's sovereignty. It's survival. We have that nation within the nation. We have our own. Yeah.
One of the, and I like that. I'm adding to my definitions. I'm always going to take it old school as much as I can since I'm playing the role of the elder today. There was a concept that we always discussed, slave culture versus counterculture. So the slave culture, which is the oppressed culture in which we live in, is governed by institutions that are set to the benefit of everybody but us. Non-African descendant individuals. This country is, and not only that, you can sit down and say the slave culture is also a mindset inside the continent where we are functioning from a colonialized mind, where we're still thinking capitalistically, right? And so that's whether you have Europeans in the country or just the European thinking in individuals that run the country. And then we have a counterculture. The counterculture builds against everything that oppresses our people. Period. Again, those institutions that, like you said, that we have to have an all Black everything. If Kroger's or Publix or you have Walmart shut down, where do we run to? What do we do? How do we eat? Where we getting our wood from?
We're going to South Carolina.
Wow, right. And so again, that's the counterculture development. You're right.
Yeah.
Land Farms is the counterculture development that creates that experience. That counterculture. Now I know we started a little late, so I'm going to skip a couple of questions and I'm going to jump to the end. Okay.
Okay.
What is your vision for the future of liberation movements rooted in a spirituality and self-determination? What is the vision? Is there a vision that you could see when you said, was it spiritual liberation unlocks a vision? Have you had in this journey so far insights and visions of what the world could be now that you're walking down this path of experiencing your divine self?
You want to go first, Nia?
Yeah.
Let me get this question so I can go sleep.
I'm sorry. I know it's not my fault that we started 30 minutes. It wasn't my fault.
It wasn't.
No, okay.
But yeah, for me, the shrine is just all community for me. I went searching for the shrine because I needed a community. I needed a nation within my nation. I see resources, being resourceful, a place of refuge, a place of solitude, all of these things, a place of the arts, a place where to see the divine, an example, to be that light in the world, and to be an example to touch the masses. That's what I see, and it takes each individual self-determination to be able to get to that next level, to be our best self, and to fully, even for me right now, personally, I'm like, okay, I need to personally get myself stronger so that I can be a better member for this organization that I've joined. Because I joined it and I was like, oh, snap, I'm not ready. Let me just show up to church on time. That's I'm still on 101. So in order for me to be my best self, every piece of me has to die. I have to do certain things, be punctual, be held accountable, go ahead and speak my vision, and apply effort into the vision that I have, my vision for the shrine. So that's just my sector, that I have for the shrine. So, yeah.
Can you repeat your question one more time for me?
What is your vision for the future of liberation movements rooted in spirituality and self-determination?
So, I'm going to take one from Bishop Ayana and you. The ancestors talking to me, y'all. No. I literally wrote down liberation is when you break out of the box in all aspects. I don't know where that came from. So for me, my vision is a network of Black communities across the globe.
Sounds like I'm gonna just drop my vision. It sounds like World of Akiva.
So I'm not done. Spiritually aligned, economically free, where we share land, love, language, dance, movement, where healing is truly sacred, because I don't think we do enough of that in our communities. And where whatever struggle you may be going through is now collective. And so we break the boxes, right? We break out of the box of oppression. And we build something new in its place. And I think that's the world that I'm willing to work for and co-create.
I know
Look at you, Mia.
we're about to go. Spiritual liberation unlocks vision, and me spending these years in our community definitely unlocked the vision of what my purpose is. And so, being assigned to Black youth, I was able to have the vision of seeing our community create these institutions that partnership not with just individuals who or organizations that walk side by side in our particular faith practice, but just with the concept of uh, unifying the African diaspora as a whole. And so I see pockets of Akibaland Youth Academies. I actually called Senegal. They're building something called the Akibaland Village in Senegal. And by just happenstance, I said, let me send them a text message. And they immediately replied, hey. And I sent them a clip of the website and what we do. And he was like, if you can find the finances to come to Senegal and build this particular youth program in Senegal, he said, we'll give you, we'll make sure that we have a pocket of the property for you. And it was just me tossing a little pebble out, and that happened some years ago. But it let me realize, and everybody that I see and I share and I show, they understand it. This particular vision was given to me by our community, and I accepted the role without having to be even given the responsibility to say that this is what I'm going to build. It is my job to make sure that I connect Black youth of the African diaspora all over the planet. That was the vision that was given to me, and I said I will adapt to every. Jeramogi, before I go, Jeramogi came back to the shrine. Came to Atlanta one year, and at this time, way before COVID, and I had just started accepting my role in this. And so he sees the seasoned IJ get up when he comes in, raise my hand, and 30 kids stand up, and we all walk around. He had a conversation with some of the still now full-time missionaries, saying, wait a minute, it doesn't matter how old he gets, he is still the Pied Piper of Black youth. And I smiled when someone told me that. Bishop Ayana actually told me the conversation, and she said, he sees you. And I was shocked, because I don't do anything to be seen, and I don't sit down and I don't ask to be told. I just do what God has called me to do. And I don't care who's watching. I'm going to just move forward, because if God called me to do it, I'm going to just do it. And in that space of accepting that vision, regardless of whatever consequences I get or go through, I'm going to go through them. But I'm not going to transition without telling the Creator, I tried to implement the vision you gave me to produce what I need to produce within the community that you assigned to.
Amen.
And that's it. And for that, man, Ajay Akono to Himba to the Nagwe. Prophet, it is your turn. Stand as a nation, because God is with us. We got it. I thank y'all so much for coming in. And so I apologize for the mix-up with the schedules in the community. Next week, we should be on time. If you can get some of the new Africans to come through, get them on to come through. If not, we're going to do what we're doing. With all that being said, y'all, peace.
Peace, love.
One love. You got it.
Hey.
Let's get it.